Season 40, Winners at War, episode 10. Is that the episode we're on? Yeah, I think it's episode 10. So, what happens? The show opens, they line up, and the tears begin. Oh man, it's family visits, but who knew it was going to be half the show? It really was literally half of last night's episode that was focused on anything but the game of Survivor. And there were a couple of comments made about, oh, how we're forgetting the game, oh, it's all about our families, etc., etc., etc. But I figured it might be worth my taking a minute to help you guys understand what the tears are all about. I bet as a viewer, when you're watching each of the families come out and meet the players, meet their family member, that your tears start. Come on. I know many of you started with a little bit of crying. You know, you wipe it away and then you cry more and you're like, what the heck am I crying about? People often ask me, well, why? Why are they bawling and bent over and convulsing so emotionally? Well, there are lots and lots of reasons, and I want to try and help you understand some of that. I think as viewers, we connect with it, and there's no question but that's why they edit it the way they do. And I'm sure you noticed Jeff asking basically the same question over and over and over and over again, but he brilliant, a really the inimitable host in Jeff has him changing the wording each time he asks a player, well, what is it about your family that you're so emotional about, or why are you so, what is it about her that you've married? The questions are funny to me, but they elicit more tears from the player and therefore from the viewers, and they love that, the emotional part of it. But here's what's going on. By this time in the game, and actually it doesn't take long at all, within a week or so, you have had so little food, we as players have had so little food, and we've been stressed in ways that we typically aren't stressed in real life, that we're kind of on an emotional edge anyway. That's something that the really good Survivor player has to manage well in order to keep from being exploited by other players. Some do it well, most don't. When the emotions creep in, it undermines the rest of the game. And producers recognized very, very early that the family visits were a gold mine for them. People talk about them and react to them and wait for them to see them more than any other part of the show. Sadly, in the original season, we didn't get them. There was one, Sean's father came to visit, and I happened to get selected to go join them on the yacht for brunch, which was nice. But my family didn't come. The final four, the final five, none of that happened. They did that after season 1. They recognized quickly that it was emotional and good TV. But here we are, the reality of it. How long are we away at this point? Oh, I don't know. It might have been, because remember, it's not the week that we see as viewers passing each time. It's only 3 days typically between tribal councils. So we're a couple of weeks, 3 weeks in, maybe, to the family visit this season. And in this episode 10, we're thinking, the players are thinking back to what it's like at home, but they don't have a lot of time to do that when they're stressed about the game, when they're in it and they're playing hard. And when unexpectedly someone in their life, somebody said it last night pretty well, that they can rely on and care about. I think it was Sophie said, somebody who wants to marry me, is here and right next to her. She even mentioned, like, I like some of these people, but I can't really rely on them or that feeling. And it's true. And that's not the way we typically go about our daily lives. In our daily lives, we touch base with those people upon whom we rely. We connect with them. We're involved with them. Even if they're in the house and we're not talking to them, we know they're there. And that's missing from the time you're at Survivor. Now again, you might go on a business trip in a hotel room for a couple of weeks, or you might go to some kind of training, or if you're military, you get posted somewhere. And those trips can be lots longer than the time that you're away on Survivor. But while you're playing the game of Survivor, it's so stressful and emotionally exhausting when you are focused so intently on people around you oftentimes don't know and certainly don't care much about. But on top of that, you want to get rid of them in order to win the prize. So they aren't people you can trust. They aren't people you can connect with and relax around so wholly and rejuvenate yourself. You can't do that. You've got to be on guard as long as possible. So that heightened emotionality, the heightened cost of what it takes to do that is what sets us up for these family visits when the floodgates open. Now, even when those floodgates open, the good players have really got to remember what's happening. They can't completely lose themselves in those moments because you're still around your competitors. You still have some game left in Survivor in order to get to the end. There has to be, in the good player, some thought about ways in which you can connect and interact with other players and their families during these exchanges that benefit you or you hope will benefit you in the game. So sure, you're human. And they do try to cast some humans on the show. Not just robots who can turn their emotions off. None of us can. As emotional or as non-emotional as people might think I am, I'm a very, very sensitive guy. When you're aware and observant, you can also be characterized as sensitive. But do I show that often? No. And during Survivor, certainly not, unless it's to my benefit, typically. It's very hard to control that and to maintain it and to not let your guard down and be vulnerable. But it's necessary as the effective player to do all of those things with your emotions in a very, very controlled way, or as controlled as possible. It's clear that there's a connection between the people who came out and the players, and we love seeing that. And these interactions that occur while they're there do have an impact on the game, but there is, even in the midst of that, some rejuvenation that happens, some connection with these people. In season 1, we got letters from our loved ones, and we were allowed to have something sent, I think, because I got a Tupperware container full of homemade cookies from my close friend, Val, and a letter from her. And the tears flowed while I was reading it because of how much I love her and how connected we are. And the cookies, that was just gold. I used that Tupperware container after eating the cookies to fill it with shells from the island, and I still have all of those. From the original beach, the Tagi Beach on Pulau Tiga, I still have hundreds of shells that I collected and brought home in that Tupperware container. Maybe I'll give some of those away. We'll see. Anyway, that memory of the time when we got those letters. I didn't even get an actual family member or loved one's physical presence, but I remember the wave of emotion and the feeling of there being someone in the world like that. My people are out there. And so this family visit, when those people of yours who are out there come and connect with you, your kids, I can imagine that being on steroids, just exponentially even more emotional. Spending time with you there in the beautiful water, on the beaches, connecting with your experience, seeing what it's like for you to live there. We did not get a lot of the detail about how each of the survivor players spent that time that they were out there with their whole families this time. So that's interesting. It was easier for the cameras to follow, one husband and wife when that's all we had in earlier seasons was one person got to stay or spend the night at camp or those kinds of things. So with as many people as were there, it was difficult for us to get the kind of details. But I think we got a lot. I think we got an opportunity to connect with some of the players as humans. And that's important, I think, for viewers, certainly for me. And I know many of those players. So watching them react in ways that are real and emotional and with the people who mean the most to them is warm. It's a good part of the unfolding of Survivor that helps you build some kind of relationship in your mind with players that makes you interested in seeing how they carry on. And last night we got a good amount of that. That was enjoyable. That was fun for me. But I hope you get that it's not a bunch of babies, that they aren't just like bawling and falling apart after 3 weeks away from their family for no reason. There's a lot about what unfolds in the game and how you are managing yourself, how you're running at an incredible pace, an incredible speed for so long, and with such heightened awareness of anything and everything that's happened around you and planning, etc., such that when you get that moment to let some of that relax, the floodgates open. And that's where the tears come from. That's where the connection is. And it's rejuvenating, to use that word again. It gives people the chance to reset, to relax for moments, to reset, and to remember what their goals are in this game. Okay, this will probably be a much shorter recap because it's a shorter episode, but that was the majority. That was half the episode, was kind of taking in who are these people with their families and enjoying the emotion around that. What's next? So the first challenge is an individual challenge, well, they all are now, and you had to stack the letters to spell immunity. And you watch, and people get close, etc., and drop, and look at Mr. Frenetic. What on earth? Mr. Frenetic takes it all down, focuses, and patiently takes the win. I've got to say it. The man, Tony, is playing well, very well. He hasn't lost his personality. He hasn't left the energy with which he's played the game and the haphazard kind of way in which he takes everything in. He hasn't left that behind, but he's managing it in the way he needs to manage. This is the way I'll say it. In the way he needs to manage it for Winners at War. So he's stepped up his game in ways I may not have been able to predict. I did not know that Tony could could wrestle with and kind of contain that freneticism sufficiently to not be undermining himself continually, as I think he did very, very, very often in his earlier appearance. So kudos to him. It isn't just in this immunity challenge where I've noticed Tony containing his emotions sufficiently to play at a next level, but he's clearly in this immunity challenge focused. What happened when Jeff made some kind of comment about Ben? Ben responded to him, and the tiles that he was lifting, wavered. It's about not even being distracted by what's around you. And that's what could have, I think it was part of what led to Ben's dropping his tiles. But regardless, Tony wins. Kudos to him. How about that hug Ben gives Tony? Couple things to say about that. Wow, love the hug. But I must say, there's an interesting thing that happens, at least to me. You may or may not care to hear this, but you've heard me talk about how damn handsome Ben is. I just find him incredibly attractive, terribly sexy, and I have to admit that all the way through the game, I kind of detach myself from who he is as a real person. I just think about the image I'm seeing and who he is and how attractive that is. But when you see his beautiful wife and son come in this family visit, boom, ruins it for me. In a good way. She's just such a sweetheart. The wife just looks like such a sweetheart. And what a beautiful boy. And the love, the connection. I'm not, as a gay man, I'm just not attracted to in the same way straight men as I am guys who might be interested in connecting in a gay way. So they've ruined my fantasy. I just tried to imagine this beautiful Ben, might maybe be interested. I know. I knew he was married beforehand, all of that. But, when it's in your face, the fantasy explodes. And that's okay. I don't mind letting that go. He's still a beautiful guy, a handsome guy. I love his masculinity. It's amazing, but I can't fantasize anymore. I can just think about what a wonderful family has and be really, really happy for him. So it's changed. My comments won't be the same anymore. But let's now look at that hug. He's expressive emotionally, Ben. He's very easily open with his emotions. And boom, Tony wins. Ben had just kind of been close prior to that and dropped his whole thing, and still, with a full kind of emotional sincerity, it seemed, hug. This real intense, happy for you hug. What's the problem with that? The problem is how others perceive it. There are lots of ways to congratulate people. There are lots of ways to, live in the moment, be excited for others. But I think as a good player, you've always got to be really, really careful about being not perceived as too close to some other player, as inseparable, as so kind of caught up in who the two of you are, or connected, or showing a connectedness that you are perceived as threatening. Does that make sense? I know it's a subtle point, and I know lots of people exchange hugs, etc. But there was a sincerity to that hug between Ben and Tony that I'm just suggesting might have been a little out of control, a little less managed by Ben than I might have tried to do, getting my head back into the game after a family visit, making sure that I was perceived by others in more of the way that I wanted to be perceived than in some way that might somehow undermine my gameplay eventually. That's all. It was exciting, clearly, for Tony, and I personally know that feeling, having won one challenge, the fire challenge, when almost like a family visit, you can relax. Boom, you've got that immunity. There's this momentary ability to go, oh my gosh, and breathe, and to just let yourself feel, exhale, breathe in, observe without the stress level being as high as normal. It's not like you can turn it off. You can't. You've still got to stay aware. You've still got to stay connected. You've still got to stay involved. You can't even let yourself appear to be as comfortable as you might really feel with that immunity around your neck. But the reality is there is a level of comfort. It does give you some energy. It is nice to not stress through at least one tribal council. Again, the challenge and winning the challenges isn't the end all to winning the game, but there's no question that they can at times be helpful for different reasons, particularly if, like Tony and me, you're not a challenge winner so frequently that you're thought of as a threat when it comes to challenges. I think this was Tony's first win too, and it looked to me like he was enjoying it appropriately. Can you tell how impressed I am with Tony's gameplay? I'm a little surprised by it. I just didn't think he could organize himself sufficiently to succeed in Winners at War. And I may be really, really wrong about that, because we're into the game now, and he is doing well. He is playing well. So as the show moves on, there's conversation, and Jeremy wants to split up Sophie and Sara, and Tony doesn't want to do that. And then Sara and Tony are in communication, and the frustration level that Sara's exhibiting with Tony is amazing. I pictured Sara being able to control better her reactions, her feelings, even with a sense of frustration about how difficult and challenging it appears to Sara Tony is being. Sara's feeling like she can't get a word in edgewise. Sara's feeling as if Tony's being Tony. That shouldn't destabilize her. That shouldn't allow her to kind of let those emotions in that might undermine her ability to regain control of the situation. And I feel like Sara was a little more destabilized than is reasonable. Even if Tony were not listening to her as well or as closely or agreeing in the way Sara wanted to. So it's funny watching the exchange and Tony being, or appearing, at least in the edit, as the calm one, and Sara appearing to get more and more riled up. Talking about it. It's like talking to a stone wall, or something that Sara said about Tony. You know, it's challenging when you're in that mode. You feel like there's a lot on the line, and the person with whom you've kind of connected and are playing the game, and you have a lot invested there, isn't listening to you, or you feel like they're not. Ugh, it can be challenging. But appearing that way, appearing challenged and stressed, is dangerous. You don't want that to be your outside communication, because then you become a liability. Then you become someone the other party has to question. Are you falling apart? Are you still reliable? Those kinds of things. Cops Are Us, I think they can get through this no problem. I don't think it's a big deal. And I think their connection is strong, but it's something people need to be careful about.
This is that adaptable thing that I've talked about so many times, and there goes Tony. He does it. He did it. He said, hey, you guys want to blindside Jeremy? You know, you notice something happen, you notice something needs to be done, and you think it through and do it.
Okay, it almost feels as if I am being a suck up to Tony. I don't tend to spend this amount of time praising many players about much gameplay. But as the show moves on, what do we see? We see Tony adapting really quickly. We see him sitting, talking to these guys, and saying, after a brief interaction that he didn't like or made him question something to do with Jeremy, he looks at them and he says, "Hey, you guys want to blindside Jeremy?" What's good about that? What's fascinating for me that it's coming from Tony is that it wasn't just a frenetic off-the-cuff response. There was that moment of thought, and the opportunity was available, and he used it. He played it. He recognized that he could garner some support from other folks by expressing something like that, recognizing whatever it was that he saw about Jeremy in front of these other players who didn't want other people to go. And Tony didn't want Sara to go. Boom, let's shift the focus. Want to blindside Jeremy? That's good gameplay, even throwing it out there. And what's he do? He's not telling them like so many people have made the mistake to do. He's asking them, how would you like to play? Does this make sense to you? La la la. Good move. It's smooth. And it's that time in the game down the road where when you're perceived that way, it's valuable. It really, really is. Good on you, Tony. Ee-yi-yi. Good on you. Now, in a comment that needed to be included, we learn that Jeremy is remembering that he has the ability to leave tribal council if he wants. He has, the ability to walk away. He then wouldn't be able to vote, but he would be protected and not voted off. And one of the things Jeremy does when we're shown that he remembers this is he says, "I'm a firefighter and I never leave people in a lurch." And I want to point out that that's, again, the way you have to work against your own mind at times. The way in which you ethically engage as a firefighter in real life is not the way you successfully engage in the game of Survivor. That stuff that you know to be right and good and moral and ethical in real life is not the structure upon which you build a successful Survivor bid. So you've got to be very, very careful about relying on those parts of you you've developed and are your core in real life. When I hear people say things like that, like what Jeremy did about being a firefighter, so he tends not to leave people in a lurch, so I don't know if I'd use my walking away from tribal council. And he's talking to the viewers. He's not talking to another player, so it's a real consideration in his mind. Good that he's considering it, but if he leans toward that, if he allows those things to impact him in the way they do in real life, he undermines his own chances for success. I point these kinds of subtleties out as often as I can, just to see if you're catching them, to see if they're the same kinds of things you're seeing people do as you watch the game unfold, so that when or if you ever get out there and play, you don't make that same mistake. As we, move on and the tribal council looms, Sophie points out that Sara has another advantage, steal a vote. And Sophie, of course, would love Sara to play that because, just based on the numbers, it could turn out to be 5-5 in the tribal council, where you'd go to rocks, revote or go to rocks, whatever. But if Sara used her steal a vote, then they would be all set. They would be, they think, in the majority. So here we're sitting as the show's unfolding, and we are wondering, is Sara going to use that steal a vote? Fun how the tribal council erupts again, and I think this is going to be a relatively common thing, where people are getting up, whispering, etc. But I wonder, did you notice from earlier times when that's happened at tribal council, there is, or there appears to be, some real effort for viewers to hear, to get the audio of some of those whispers, to get some sense of what's being whispered and discussed. If you noticed last night, there was almost none. We didn't get the subtitles. We didn't get what people were whispering to one another. And so all you saw was this mess. And you knew that there were all kinds of side conversations going on, but we really didn't get what the conversations were. And the editing focused us on watching Jeremy, who we knew has the ability to walk away from tribal council, and watching Sara, who we knew has the ability to play a steal a vote. So it was an interesting dynamic. That back and forth happens between Sara and Jeremy. It's actually, looking at each other, who's going to go first. And Jeremy leaves tribal council, which leaves the rest of the group off kilter. Now what? Oh no. So we know it was Jeremy who was going to go. And it took him some real evaluation. You could tell he was trying to decide, am I really going to do this? But he did it, and he leaves tribal council. And the rest of the players at council are left trying to figure out, okay, now what? And Sophie says, how about the five of us just stand up and decide? And that's when they huddle. And they figure now the five of them can just pick somebody and choose, and that person will be out. Obviously, and they didn't know about Sara's ability to steal a vote, which could really throw a wrench into this kind of stuff. The huddle's done, and Sara doesn't have to now wait to see what Jeremy's going to do, because Jeremy's already used his I'm leaving tribal council advantage and he's gone. And Sara plays her steal a vote advantage. And she steals the vote from Denise. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Denise now doesn't get to vote. Sara gets to vote twice. Now what do we do? Time to read the votes. Oh no, wait! Kim has an idol. What? Oh my gosh. Kim's gonna play her idol. Wow. So Kim thinks, although she's not heard anything, she might be in danger. No. Kim's gonna play her idol for somebody else. And although Sarah used her steal a vote on Denise, Denise still could be at risk. So Kim plays her idol for Denise. Kim could have played it for Tyson or anybody else or herself, but she plays it for Denise, thinking that's going to backfire on the five who had plotted to win the vote. But they weren't targeting Denise. And bye-bye goes Tyson. That's that kind of a roller coaster of a tribal council is fun to watch, but it is painful to be in, stressful to be in. And Tyson emotionally, to go again. He comes past the table where he's supposed to give any tokens to somebody else. I guess he doesn't have any, and gives us the finger instead. You can see, just depleted, the energy, and back on edge of extinction. Oh well. Season 40, episode 10. Mostly a family visit deal. But still, a fun episode, right? 80% of you who are listening to these videos have not subscribed to my channel. Please subscribe. Just hit the subscription button and hit the notification button, and you'll be informed when I have another video up for you to listen to. After you've subscribed, comment. Comment positively, comment negatively. No holds barred. Just say what you're thinking. That's what will make our exchange even more valuable. As I'm able, I'll create new videos responsive to that commentary. So like away, or dislike, on that rare occasion you may feel the need to do so. But either way, thank you.